Hi, my name is Joey Lurie, and my project that I chose to do is does research, sorry, does education level predict home ownership? And I used a county level data analysis and I used the support of AI tools. My research question is there a correlation between the education level of a county and its home ownership rate? Why does this matter? Home ownership is a major indicator of wealth and financial stability. Education is often linked to better jobs and income, which then leads to the better ability for home ownership. Understanding this relationship can inform policymakers about housing and education policy. Hypothesis. So, my null hypothesis, there is no correlation between the education level of a county and its home ownership rate. And then my alternative hypothesis was there's a positive correlation between the education level of a county and its home ownership rate. My rationale for these hypotheses is data suggests that counties with more people holding bachelor's degrees often have higher home ownership rates. Education can lead to higher income, credit access, and housing affordability. Additionally, people that come from wealthier families tend to finish school at higher rates because they aren't having to start work at younger ages and help provide for their family. For my literature review overview, I chose three academic articles. The first one that I chose was The Role of Federal and Private Student Loans in Home Ownership Decisions. Um, just an overview, private student loan debt lowers home ownership among recent grads, which I thought was really interesting that it was specifically private student loan, and I go into much more depth of that in my literature review. Federal debt has less of an impact. I do believe that this is because there's less to no interest rates for student loans. Um, the second article that I did was Echoes of Rising Tuition and Students Borrowing, Educational Attainment, and Home Ownership in Post-Recession America. This was written in 2017, and the basic overview is as tuition increases, it leads to more debt and lower home ownership rates, especially for middle income and first generation students. As tuition increases, so does the housing market costs. And so overall, it's just fighting against each other, and people are not able to afford more basic things. And then the third article that I did was The Effect of Education on Home Ownership, Evidence from 20th Century School Attendance Laws in the United States. This was written in 2023. And the main takeaway that I got from this article was that for each additional year of schooling, home ownership likelihood increases by about 1.9%. This was mostly for the middle and upper income individuals. Um, Again, this counteracts the previous information that I got from the other studies, or it aligns with it because a lot of the time, middle and upper income individuals aren't having to take out loans and going into debt. So they're able to complete more years of school without increasing their debt. Um, so, in conclusion, education matters for sure when it comes to home ownership percentage, but debt and income levels also are a big contributing role. Comparing statistical methods, I use the t-test, ANOVA, or comparing the t-test, ANOVA, and regression analysis. For the t-test, it compared home ownership between high and low education groups. Um, with a bachelor's degree and without a bachelor's degree. This was simple and it was easy, but it was limited to two groups. It also didn't have a ton of strength. The ANOVA test, it compared home ownership across low, medium, and high education groups. It shows the group differences, but not the strength of the relationship. And then the regression analysis. It measured how education predicts home ownership. This was the most useful tool, in my opinion. It shows direction, strength, and it allows for multiple variables. Predictive model. The model that I believed that would be the best with the support of AI tools would be the multiple linear regression model. The dependent variable would be percent home ownership, and the main predictor would be percent with bachelor's degree or higher. Additional variables that could be considered in this would be could be income, veteran status, immigration, lots of other things. Why linear regression? It's good for continuous outcomes. It is interpretable and widely used, and it shows how much education influences home ownership. For the first visual that I did a scatter plot. The chart type, scatter plot with a trend line. The x-axis is percent with a bachelor's degree or higher, and the y-axis is percent home ownership rate. It shows that there's a slight negative slope, which does go against my hypothesis. The R squared value is low. There is a weak relationship, and it suggests that other va variables are influencing the outcomes. The second visualization that I chose was the choropleth maps. This show map one shows that I did percent with a bachelor's degree for my variable, and then for map two, my variable was percent home ownership by county. Why it's useful? It's just a different way of looking at it than most other charts. You're able to visualize geographic patterns and compare them. There are some interesting things when you look at them. You're also able to identify regional disparities, and it supports the idea that both variables are unevenly distributed. For my third visualization, or my third visual, I did a bar chart. This shows home ownership rates by county. It's easy to compare across locations, and it reveals counties with the highest and lowest rates very easily. So, for example, the lowest rate is in Greenlee County, and the highest rate is in Apache County. Takeaways, home ownership varies a lot across Arizona. Um, and education helps to predict it, but local factors also matter. In conclusion, educate some key takeaways. Education has some influence on home ownership, but it's not the strongest factor to take into play on its own. Debt, income, and other county-specific factors also play a big role. And then how AI helped me throughout this process. It helped suggest appropriate methods. It also summarized the academic research journals that I chose, and it recommended effective visualizations. Additionally, if I ever got stuck and like couldn't figure out something on Excel, I would ask it, I would use it as a problem-solving tool. And then these are all of my references. On top of this PowerPoint, I have a much more detailed in every section in my doc for part one that I submitted. Thank you.